I'd like to welcome everybody back to Mishna Study, and we are in our middle of our discussion of Harambam, Introduction to Perek Helek. We are approaching the last phase of that, the last part of it, in which he elaborates and enumerates the famous 13 Ikarim, 13 principles of the Jewish faith. Before I begin, I'd like to make one important note. And as we analyze them, we'll talk about each one. But it's just a word of a general introduction. Something that I alluded to earlier. It is very, very important to understand and to take every word Harambam writes seriously as he meant it. There are those who claim that these Ikarim were either written in his youth and therefore, but not something that he referred to later on in his later writings, and therefore maybe he changed his mind. Or others say, Shalom, that he just was writing it but didn't mean it, just for the masses. I'd like to deal with that for a moment. First of all, it's important to understand that Harambam's works were written and rewritten throughout his lifetime. And there is even allusions in the Perush Mishnayot to actually something he wrote in the Moreh with a quote. So it seems to be clear that he revisited those works even after. And second, I would just like to make mention that in the Mishneh Torah, in Hilchot Teshuvah, where he talks about those people that don't have a Helek le'olam haba, and he talks about minim, epikorsim, and kofrim, a careful reading shows that actually he's reiterating the entire Gimel Ikarim in Hilchot Teshuvah. For example, the min is somebody who doesn't believe in the first five. And we continue, and if you continue reading, almost the entire gamut of the Yud Gimel Ikarim are reiterated in the Mishneh Torah as a person who doesn't believe in these things, ein lo Helek le'olam haba. So Harambam did analyze it, did revisit it in different places, and we need to understand that that is something that we should be taking very seriously. If Harambam wrote it, let us have one principle. Let's assume that he meant it, that he meant what he wrote, and it challenges us to analyze it and understand all of his works in light of what he wrote in all different places. So I think enough said of that point, but as we go through the Ikarim, we have to assume that these are of utmost importance. Harambam clearly believes that these are the clear foundations of the Jewish faith, and anyone who doesn't believe in them or who rejects them, he's not part of Yisrael. He's not part of the Jewish people. And it's very clear that he is, again, claiming that he forfeits his Helek le'olam haba. So it is, and we'll discuss these and we'll reiterate in discussing these points as we go through them. Okay. So the first Ikar, which is the most basic, is what we call Metziut Hashem. So we'll read that together. Hayesod Harishon. Metziut Haborei Yishtabach Shimo. The existence of the Creator. V'hu, sheyesh sham nimsa be'ofen hashalem she'bofnei hametziut. Hu ilat metziut hanimsaot kulam, ubo kiyum metziutam, umimenu nimshach hakiyum. We'll discuss this. First of all, sheyesh sham nimsa. I'd like to talk about that word sham for a minute, because much has been made of it in different works. In reality, as Rabbi Kafah mentions, and I'm going to read to you his comment here, and bituyam sheyes l'tziyun kiyum velo l'tziyun makom. Sharambam imetzo me'aravit le'ivrit. This is an Arabic term, yesham, which just emphasizes existence and not place. And it's a Harambam, a lot of times, his Hebrew is influenced by his Arabic. Many times, of course here we're dealing with translations, and so therefore it's an Arabic term. But even his Hebrew in the Mishnah Torah sometimes is influenced by his Arabic. And so it's important to understand, and that's all we should make of this word Sham. I just say that because I've seen articles on the word Sham and one mentioned Sham, and it's just a borrowed term, as most students of Harambam that are well versed in the Arabic originals will comment on that point. And no further point should be made about that word. Okay. והוא שיש שם נמצא באופן השלם שבפני המציאות. Right? The mitzui of the Boreh is the utmost perfection that exists. הוא עילת המציאות הנמצאות כולם. He is the cause of all that exists. ובו קיום מציאותם. And in him is their existence. They exist through him. וממנו נמשך הקיום. And from him is where the kiyum emanates from. And so his existence, let's just point this out, his existence is the source of all existence. All existence is dependent on him, and he, as we'll see, is independent of all existence. And therefore the only true independent being is the Boreh. ואילו העלנו בדעתנו הסתלקות מציאותו, הייתה בטלה מציאות כל הנמצא. If we could imagine that his existence would cease to exist, then all existence would no longer be there. ולא היה נשאר נמצא בלתי תלוי במציאותו. Nothing would stay that is independent of his existence. It is all dependent on all his existence. And if we would therefore, conversely, imagine that all existence as we know it, with the exception of him, would be immediately cease to exist, not only would his existence remain unchanged and not cease to exist, but rather he wouldn't lack anything. Meaning there is no lacking in his existence, there is no dependence on the existence of the Creator that emanates from our existence. Kadosh Baruch Hu is not dependent in his existence on anything else. And everything outside of him, minas chalim, from the intellects, the malachim, which Rambam calls a sechel nivdal, v'gormei galgalim, the galgalim themselves, and they're, as Rambam holds, that they are beneath the malachim, but above us, u'mashet tahtehem, and everything under that, meaning all the physical worlds that we see in the universe. Hakol zakuk b'msiuto elav. Everything is dependent on his existence. V'zeh ha'yesod harishon hu shemoreh alav diber anochi Adonai. And this is the first yesod, which the pasuk that references it is the Anochi Hashem, right? He's going to reference psukim, which is an Anochi Hashem is the reference to this yesod. We have to remember that according to Rambam, Anochi Hashem is counted as one of the 613 mitzvot, right? So this is all hinted into Anochi Hashem, that we should believe this idea, right? And the understanding and the knowledge of this is a mitzvah. Okay. I would also like to add into this Ikar that the belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, as described, is not merely a creator, but as a manhig ha'olam. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a boreh, and a manhig. And that's why we are dependent on his mitzvot, because he is manhig the olam continuously, and therefore the olam itself is dependent on his hanhaga and his existence. And as for the second Ikar, which we're going to call that Yehud Hashem. Vayesod Hasheni, Yehudo Yit'aleh. V'hu shezeh shehu ilat hakol ehad. So now we build on the creator, the first Ikar, which is the creator, and now we talk about his, loosely translated, his oneness, or maybe more appropriately, his uniqueness, right? That he himself is absolutely unique, and his oneness is different than what we call one. Lo ke'ehad hasug v'lo ke'ehad hamin, right? Not ehad in types. And the Rambam talks about sug and min, which are just more general or more specific types, right? So that is that. V'lo ke'hadami, v'lo ke'ish ha'adam murkav. Also, it's not like when we say one person, but that one person is complex, because that one person is made up of divisible parts, and that's what we call murkav. But that's not how we can compare the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Isha Murkav, Helek lahadim rabim, is made of many divisible parts. V'lo ehad keguf hapashut ha'ehad b'minyan, asher yikabel haluka le'ensof, right? And his oneness is not a numerical thing, which is divisible at infinite amount of times. Elohu yitaleh ahad b'ahdut she'en kemota ahdut b'shum panim. His oneness is not compared to any other oneness that exists. We believe that he is an absolute unique oneness. As we always say, not divisible. וזה היסוד השני, הוא שומרי עליו מאמר שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. Right? This is what we believe when we talk about the pasuk Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. I'd like to make mention that it's important. We know in Hilchot Kriyat Shema that the halakha l'maaseh, there's different opinions in the Gemara, but we know that that Kriyat Shema must be said with kavanah. If not, it's not yotzeh. And like I said, there are different opinions in the Gemara how far you have to be mechaven. And the halakha is pasuk rishon. But okay, that's all we have to be mechaven mikar din. Of course, it should be mechaven the whole thing if he can. But if you are saying Shema Yisrael, this is what you need to understand. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is an Ehad. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Ehad. And when you read Shema, think about this unique oneness that is part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not part, that is what we understand about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is the second Ikar of our beliefs about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Ikarim, again, I use the word beliefs. I just want to say, these are not something that, in the Christian sense, that we use beliefs. This is something we know and understand to be a truth. This is knowledge-based understanding, and this is that comes out of our awareness and knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.